Welcome to Mint. I am Surabhi Agarwal. In today's edition of From the Newsroom, we'll discuss Supreme Court's landmark decision on media reporting. We have with us Mint's Views editor Siddharth Singh. Siddharth, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So the Supreme Court has refrained from giving any sort of guidelines on media reporting. But what's the judgment about? Can we start by talking about what does it mean for the media?
Well, that's correct. That the court has not given any. It's not framed any guidelines on what the media can do and should not do, as it was suspected at the beginning of the case. What it has actually done is it's brought in a novel doctrine of a neutralizing device which allows the courts, especially the higher judiciary, the high courts and the Supreme Court, from temporarily asking the media not to report certain court proceedings where it feels that reporting these proceedings will lead to a unfair trial or will impede in the administration of justice.
Right.
So that's what the court has done.
Right. So given the circumstances, we are seeing so many scams coming up. There's 2G, there's coal. What kind of an implication would something like this have, in your opinion?
In the normal course, it should not have it should not lead to any detrimental consequences for the press.
Right.
But suppose some company or some government official or someone who's involved in a illegal practice and a charge sheet is filed and the matter is in the court, that person can go to the higher court after this judgment. It can go to a high court or to the Supreme Court and say that for the sake of fairness of trial, the press be temporarily asked not to report these proceedings. The operative part in the court's judgment is that these bans or temporary halts in reporting, they're temporary. They are not meant to be permanent, or they are not supposed to last for a long time. Otherwise, it defeats the purpose of press freedom.
Sure.
So the court has gone in for a fine balance between allowing the press as wide a freedom as is possible and also ensuring some sort of fairness in trial. But on the whole, given the environment in which the press is operating, the consequences can be negative.
You said the consequences could be negative. There's so much of criticism happening about internet censorship, be it Twitter blogs, be it other things. Where does this fit in the picture? Do you think it could get worse?
It could if the matter is in the court. It's also that the government of the day is especially jittery about many things. Problems could arise once matters are in front of the court. It is at that point that the government or persons involved or who have been charge sheeted or who are somehow suspected to be involved in these things or who have pleaded in front of the court, they can ask the court, they can petition the court to prevent the case being reported in the press.
Right. So from what I understand, there could be wide implications of this. If we step back a little, what was the trigger for a verdict like this? Was there one particular case which sort of made the Supreme Court to think about such kind of a verdict?
The origins of the matter lie in a case between Sahara and SEBI, the Securities and Exchange Board of India.
Okay.
At one point, the Supreme Court had asked Sahara to repay investors who had put money in its optionally fully convertible bonds.
Okay.
And it had asked Sahara to file an affidavit in which it would show that how it would go about securing the security involved so that it could pay back its investors. And there were negotiations between Sahara and SEBI, and at one point one of the lawyers of Sahara had actually sent a letter to email to SEBI authorities in which a proposal was outlined.
Okay.
And somehow that proposal was leaked and it was reported in a news channel at a time when proceedings were going on in the Supreme Court. And that led to the question that could matters which were not in public domain be disclosed or be reported in the press while there were proceedings in courts. So that is the genesis of this case.
Okay. So while a lot of people have talked about, how it could have negative implications, what is the positive side of this?
The positive side is that the court didn't go in for framing detailed guidelines. Apart from the fact that the court is very wise and it realizes the limitations of what it can do, the question also is that there is a regulator for the Press Council of India.
Sure.
And the matter is best resolved by taking the press council and the government together in confidence and then trying to draw up some guidelines instead of a more coercive court-directed or court-mandated framework. The court has not gone in for that. And the court is acutely conscious of the value of press freedom, and at many points in the judgment, it has highlighted this issue.
Thank you so much for joining us on the show,
My pleasure.
Siddharth. Difficult times for the government, but it's yet to be seen if the contours of media reporting are affected by this judgment. On that note, we end today's show. Thank you for watching.